Man, puts a whole new meaning and glorious purpose. Hello, interwebs. I hope you're all doing well, and I am here to review the latest and final episode of Loki Season 2, and potentially the last episode of the series overall, especially given how this episode felt. This episode titled Glorious Purpose. I'm going to go full spoilers on this one. This is the season finale, and honestly, I'm actually kind of surprisingly emotionally impacted by this episode that I just kind of need to talk all about it. So if you are someone who likes my spoiler-free sections, this is what I will say for you. I found this finale to be very, very, very emotionally moving and fitting for this show. I have been very, very up and down on Loki Season 2, and I still hold by all of my criticisms, but a strong ending can help really solidify my feelings about the whole thing, and this was a truly strong ending to a very admittedly uneven season, and one that I still have issues with, but this hit all the notes that I wanted it to hit and actually fix some of the criticisms that I had with where I thought this was going to go at the end of last episode. And I think it honestly just, I think, recontextualizes not only this whole season, but Loki as a character's journey as a whole in a way that I really, really enjoyed. So that is what I can say spoiler-free, but let us dive into full spoilers. I loved the way that this episode sort of took my expectations and played with them, because my biggest kind of criticism at the end of last episode, if you looked at my review of it, was me feeling very frustrated that Loki was just going to be able to go back in time and just redo the end of episode 4 and fix everything. And I was sort of watching the beginning of this episode, and I just was sort of saying, like, yep, this is it. He's going to have an unlimited amount of times to do whatever he wants. And I was sort of sitting here being like, of course, they're just going to fix it, and he's going to just go through timey-wimey stuff and be able to fix it, and it'll all be fine. But that's not how they went. In fact, he found out that no matter how many times he tried, he still was going to fail. And I think that that is honestly the only way you could have done that storyline that makes it work, that like their failure is what it is, and it was always set up for them to fail by He Who Remains. He knew that this was going to be, because he thought he had them, checkmated, because he's like, either you have nothing or you have me, so you might as well go with me. And that sort of long journey to get to that realization that like the end event of season 1 was still part of He Who Remains' plan all along, I thought was just a fantastic conclusion that I think is very timey-wimey, actually takes full advantage of the time travel shenanigans that the show can do, but in a way that builds the themes of, like, this man will see, like, people in power will say, well, it's either me or nothing. You have no alternative. It's like, you want, either y'all die or you have to deal with my bullshit. You have to deal with me being the authoritarian. And I think that idea presented here, that is just so well articulated, and the fact that it was all the way that he built it in the first place. His loom was meant to be a failsafe that was always going to fail without him. It was only supposed to set back to him. It just speaks to this like power trip idea that like that's when authoritarians present their arguments, that's what they say. It's either me or chaos. As season 1 ends, it's like me or a bunch of different versions of me that are going to be much worse, a bunch of despots that are just much worse than me, so you might as well go with this authoritarian. Or it's you take this system or you have nothing. It's just like, this is the way the world works, or we're all going to die. And that is also not true, but they make it seem that way, and they build the system in order to be that way. That's, if you don't have me, it's going to fall away. And I thought that was actually quite brilliant. I've had many problems with the timey-wiminess of this season. Specifically gave me feeling like it's trying to add a lot more emotional weight than it actually had or deserved. I think like of the time where we saw Loki prune himself in episode, I think, 4, that was referring to him in episode 1. I'm like, this doesn't really land in the emotional way that I think it's trying to give. It's sort of a very like, sort of thing. But this one, this timey-wiminess fits the themes of the show and works very beautifully. And I have to say, Tom Hiddleston's performance throughout this entire segment was so good. The opening bit, I was literally like laughing just at his performance, where he's just like, he's not exasperated, he's not angry, he's just like, all right, let's do it. I've been doing this over time, like let's just do this. I just I love, there's the one line where like Mobius is just like talking to Obi, is like, look, he's coming for your job, and he's like, Loki's like, yep, coming for you, coming, like, you said that line like a billion times, like, it's just, he's just like, yep, going through the motions, got this done. He's just kind of like, yep, this is it. I love his bit. It was like, yep, push the button, it's kind of sticky. Like, just Tom Hiddleston's performance of, like, it's not exasperated, it's just like, yep, we're gonna get through this. This has to happen. Let's go through this. I know. Yep. Like, it was so perfect. And then when we jump to his confrontation with He Who Remains, and you just see him struggling, and I love the editing of, you hear Sylvie saying over and over, you're gonna have to kill me, you're gonna have to kill me, and you think like, oh, that is what he's going to have to fall for He Who Remains plan, and fall right into that trap. And it's tragic and heartbreaking. And when Loki like says like, what makes you think this is the first time we've had this conversation, and pauses time and does all that, and you just see like him struggling with this choice that he has to make. And there's that moment where he says like, the last thing I want is a throne. And it just showcases how far Loki has come as a character to be someone who he says that and you believe it earnestly. Like, go back to the first ever Thor movie and most of Loki's stuff since, and it has been, he has wanted to have that throne. And we went into it was Infinity War, where the prime sacred timeline Loki does die, and his arc there is being more willing to self-sacrifice for his brother and the people he cares about, and that is reiterated here in Loki, but in a way that I think is almost even more subversive than his death in Infinity War, which in Infinity War felt very much for family and very personable. And here, Loki is doing that for his friends. He is sacrificing himself for the people that he cares about here in the TVA, as we sort of got reiterated last episode. But in an ironic twist, that very sort of, tragic way, he gets what he wanted all along. He gets the throne, and him grabbing those timelines and dragging them there and sitting down on that golden throne, he gets what he wants, and he doesn't want it anymore. He just wants to do it to save his friends, and his motives are actually kind of pure. And it's tragic now because he has to have this, and he has to carry it by himself alone at the end of time, holding it all together. Just that, like, again, that sort of very tragic ending of he gets what he wants, but now it's not what he needs anymore. I think is very beautiful and fits very much so the sort of Norse mythological version of Loki that we know. Like, when we pull back out and we see that it's this tree that it's formed, I think that's very much referencing Yggdrasil, the world tree from Norse mythology, that sort of like all of the branches of the different worlds hold himself up on, that Loki is literally holding that tree together. And also, if you learn about Loki's fate in Norse mythology before Ragnarok, Loki in Ragnarok, he is tortured for all time, sort of underneath the world, having serpent venom like dropped on him as his wife sort of like wipes it off of him from time to time. And it's meant to be a torture where he just sits there for all time until Ragnarok comes. And it's not the exact same thing as that, but this version of Loki being alone and trying to hold everything together and sort of being a tragic ending for him is a very similar idea to that concept of what happens to Loki in Norse mythology. And so, it's not a one for one, and I think it would have been a bit on the nose if they had gone one for one. But I do think it echoes that in, I think, a really, it's like poetry, it rhymes. I think in a way that worked very well for me. So yeah, this was an emotionally affecting moment. And then all the sort of rest of the stuff that we get, where we get Mobius going to see, the family that he could have had, and him saying, I'll be here at time, and Sylvie being like, I'm gonna go do whatever I want. I thought it was perfect. Loki finally giving them the choice that they never had, finally have free will. And it's sort of it is that sort of like my thing that I was worried about with Marvel having this ending, that I was going to be like, oh, they're going to reinforce, like, it's the good ones and things like that. It's like, no, actually it kind of works for me. It is this sort of like anarchistic ending where it's like, yeah, they have free will, the timelines get to survive and get to do everything we want, but it is on the sacrifice of someone who was always full of himself. But this is his, in a way, I don't want to say penance, but like this is the price that he pays, and he's willing to pay it. And I think that is a beautiful kind of ending for Loki as a character, and fits. I think it's one of the few Marvel shows that I'm like, yeah, their politics are not completely fucked. Actually, it's not Secret Invasion up in here or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I think it works very well. So yeah, I am shocked because I came into this finale fully expecting it to be fine or okay, but I am shocked at how well it pulls it together. It does not completely take away all of my criticisms of season 2, but it does very much bolster my feelings as a whole about this season, because this nailed the landing, and I have to say a nailed ending can do a lot to really just better fix my feelings on the whole season whole. As a terrible ending can ruin my feelings on a season whole. I mean, look at WandaVision. I loved that season until the final episode or two, and then it shit the bed so hard that it's just like, it's hard to look back on that show with fondness. But the reverse happens here, where I have a lot of issues with season 2 overall, but this ending really makes me feel like it pulled it together, no pun intended, in a way that makes me feel really positive about it on the whole. But with all that said, I should say I am going to be reviewing the Marvels on this channel. I actually already saw it and recorded the review already as of the time of this recording, but I'm going to post it up tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. I'm also going to be on the podcast Film Joy, giving a much longer discussion on that. I've been appearing on the wonderful David Chen's podcast, Film Joy, as well as Decoding TV, where I talked about Gen V, so please go check those out. I'll have a lot of fun, and David Chen is absolutely wonderful. That's my thoughts on this season and episode of Loki. What did you think about season 2 of Loki? I'd love to hear all your thoughts down below. But beyond all of that, I hope you all, my friends, live long and prosper.